Hey everybody, I'm Bob Bakert with Jazz Guitar today. We're here with Stephane Wrembel, and we're honored to have you, man. This is really great. Um,
Thank you.
yeah. So I actually first heard you play in 2015 in Atlanta, Georgia at Steve's Live Music. Um, that was a long time ago.
Where is that again?
Atlanta, Georgia, Sandy Springs was called Steve's Live Music. It's not there anymore. And
Oh yeah. I remember now.
yeah, and you came down and Charles Williams is a big friend slash fan of yours, and he said I needed to come and hear you play, and I'm very glad I did. So
Cool.
listen, you're a very important guy, and in
Bye.
you are, yeah, in music you are. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a big Django guy, and he identified you as the number one. I don't remember how he put it, like Djangoologist out there in the and the thing we want to talk. Obviously, Django is a big part of your music and your influence. Obviously, that's a big
Yes.
part of it. But one of the things, aside from the fact that you you play, obviously at virtuoso level, um, but you also educate. I watched a lot of your gigs, on YouTube and all of that. And you do something that I think is very important. You let people know what's going on, and you give them the history of the songs and the history of Django and the people and the culture around it. And so when they listen to the music, they get a deeper, a deeper experience, if you will, of what's going on. Have you always done that?
Not so much when I was younger because I thought like I wanted to be like John Coltrane when I was young. I was like, we're gonna take a song and we're gonna explore that song and play that one song for like 3 hours, you know, and not speak at the gig. And I said I was never talking at the gig. And little by little I started talking, and then I realized that I'd rather like bring people on a journey. And I started developing a completely different way of doing. And now I talk all the time, and really built I build a journey with the people. This is really about that. It's about the journey.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed it because it helped me. It helped me understand what you're doing. You you're one of the workingest guitarists out there. I mean, I'm looking at your tour schedule, and you're everywhere. I mean, you're traveling a lot and playing a lot of gigs.
Yeah.
How do you find people responding to your music all over the world, all over the country? I mean, what is the overall feeling for you?
Oh, it's an amazing response, because I think like when someone comes to a concert, they want to dream. And we play the concert, we want to dream too,
Right.
you know? We're on the side, like we have that, we own the instruments, like we project, but it's the same principle of dreaming. We dream our concerts and want people to dream our concerts too. And you have your everyday life. There is problems. There is this. There is that. And then suddenly you're at the concert, and we enter a very spiritual zone. It's very transcendental, and that's why I try to bring people into that zone of transcendence. And I try to put myself in that same zone. So when we play the concert starts, and then the concert ends, and I'm not so sure what's going on in between. But I know that we're in a certain zone and we feel a certain way in the end. When someone, I have things like I played like the last show we played, for example, like Friday. We were at the Blue Note in Napa. We had two concerts. They were full. That was amazing. This guy comes to me and he had like tears in his eyes. Like, I wish my dad was still alive to hear that music because I know he would love it and stuff. You see that? So for that guy, he reminds me of his dad and stuff like that. Another friend of mine, same thing, was crying because he was thinking he was in the desert and stuff. Like, there are people that are really touched. You know what I mean? They have stories. Everyone has his own story, his own thing. And
Yeah.
everyone gets moved a certain way. The work we do is very emotional work. Marcel, je suis en interview, okay? Yeah, it's a very emotional work that we do. It's not intellectual at all. And yeah, so and it's a journey when I use my words because I don't have lyrics in my songs.
Right.
But I like to give a spine and a story to the show, you know. So there is a sense of story, and the music is like the sentimental part of it. It's the feeling part of it, you know. We feel something, and we get in that transcendental zone with that feeling.
Well, one of the things that I notice about when you play is that melody and relationship to harmony is everything. It's king. You your way of expressing your melodies is just, it's very personal. I can feel you, and to speak to what you're talking about, I can feel what you're trying to convey when you play the melody. That's kind of unusual. I mean, you know, to have that deep connection. I mean, you're a technical player. I mean, you studied. You know, anybody can go on, you know, your website or can Google you. You have a Wikipedia and find out all the places that you've studied. And you know, you're a learned musician. You just didn't, you know, come up, you know, from the street and decide to start playing this music. You're schooled. You play piano first, and then you know to the guitar, and you studied in France, and then you went to Berkeley, and I mean you know what's going on, and yet with all this intellectual power, you know, it's really nice to see the two things. It's nice to see the education, of course, but it's nice to see your deep soulful connection to the music. Is that a pretty accurate description?
Well, yes. Also, I went as far as I could with schools and stuff like that. Like you said, I went to Berkeley and all that. I also took, I spent like 3 years with a master in New York City, like an old master, like learning the craft and the art of counterpoint, like Renaissance counterpoint and neoclassical, like a complete classical harmony, you know? But with all that, now I spent like years erasing all the crap that I learned in school. Because that's like just a bunch of terrible things that I've been taught, you know. It's like a school has no choice but pack the space with information. It's a space eater, you know.
Right.
And in order to justify taking your check, you know, to take your money, in order to justify their existence and take your money, they have to offer something. They have to sell something. It's
right.
a selling part, and they sell information.
Right.
But so much of it is useless. And the problem is so useless that it makes the mind heavy, and it's impossible after that to create. Once you learn all these modes and all this stuff, you know, that is completely useless, then you cannot really, you have too much information in the mind. The thing is that we need a minimum of information. You need to understand how harmony is constructed. A tonality, how does it work? You know, like there are fundamentals. So you want a minimum of things to know and a minimum of things in your muscle memory. But this said, it's a very delicate frontier, you know, a delicate line between do I have enough or do I need more? The thing is, the less you have, you know, the more sparse is the information that you have in you, the more space there is for the melody to deploy itself and really deploy itself when there is space. And once you understand like the very extremely basic harmony and you hear it, you know, the more you hear it and have it in your fingers and have it in your ears, in your eyes, and you really like feel it completely, then the melody you create with your ears. It's something you create with your instinct, not with the mental. If you say, oh, I have a G7, I'm going to play a G7 Mixolydian or something. It's just, this is crap. This is never going to do anything. This is terrible. This is exactly what must not be done. You know, if you have a 7 chord, you just look at like the shape of the 7 chord on the guitar, you listen to the sounds and you listen to where it goes and you go take it from there. I also noticed that it's very geometrical. You look at the shape of G7 going to C, for example. So you look at where the shapes are. those little triangles, the lines, and how they move one to the other, how they sound when they move. It's very playful, very, very beautiful, you know. Uh, Instead of being like, okay, so I'm gonna see the fifth degree of this if I start from the fifth of that, and then like all those words like that. This is
Right.
bad. It's bad news, you know. Basically, algebra is not very good. One of my students is like, oh yeah, if you take the seventh chord and you take the fifth and then you play the diminished chord, I just like, you're already like lost. It is already like a lot of talking and a lot of numbers, you know. It's like take the seventh chord, takes its fifth, and then the fifth is the root. It's like no, man. You have G7 is there. You should see it all at once. And if there is a diminished chord, you should see it in relationship. The diminished chord is born out of the seventh chord. So you should see the relationship between the shape of the seventh chord and the diminished. It doesn't matter if it's every 3 fret or all that stuff. What matters is like the connection between these shapes and the resolution chord. So you look at a bunch of drawings, and when you play, these drawings are sound, and you trace them like, you know, like tracing paper. It's like there's an underlying shape, and you trace it, and it makes sound, you know? And it's a beautiful thing, and you play with your ears, and it's a wonderful feeling. Because we should not forget that music is something animal. It's our fingers, it's our ears, it's our eyes, it's our mind. All that is animal. We're an animal. So when we play music, it's the body. We respond to our natural animalistic nature. It's a wonderful thing, you know. We don't want to be too Promethean and deny the fact that we are animals. Being an animal and being part of the animal realm is a beautiful thing. Although we control the animal realm and we're the boss, okay, great, feels great. But then, like after that, we're entering also what is beautiful in the human being is the dreaming, the imagination. All that is wonderful. It's great. Scenarios of all kinds and all imagination, beautiful poetry, music. But then you can also build up illusionary, very painful ideologies. So you can fall in the trap of ideology. And then you start you ensnare yourself in a virtual world of thoughts, and you're trapped in a Promethean nightmare. But if you remember that you're an animal and you embrace that nature, that doesn't mean you deny your Promethean side. It is there. We're all Promethean, you know? But still, the music is something that is connected to us in the body. So if you want melodies, you should let them come out from your body, not from your logic. That's never going to do anything. Prometheus is not a creator, you know? He's a titan, he's not a god.
I love that explanation. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Well, I did go to jazz school. I studied a lot, and I just totally agree with you 100%. Wayne Krantz, the jazz fusion player, Wayne says, yeah, I studied bebop. It took me 10 years to get it out of my playing, you know?
That's exactly that. Wayne is a friend of mine too.
Well, then you've heard him say that, you know.
We're on the same page. Him and I, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Our aesthetic is completely different.
Yeah.
Our way of but we're on the same page in the sense that we embrace our own nature and we compose and we play according to it. We accept the way we are, who we are. We accept the world as is, and we produce something that is part of ourselves, the way it is.
You know, it's fun to listen to. You know, I when I listen to your music, I'm hearing joy. You know, I really am. I'm hearing joy and a spontaneous nature, and you know, I study acting. I still do acting, and we talk about authenticity all the time. You know, is this authentic? And so the reason I say that is when I hear your playing, I absolutely have no doubt in my mind it's 100%, you know, you. I mean, it's coming right out of you and you know, to your audience. I noticed that when you start your shows a lot, you play a lot of solo guitar before you bring the band on. You want to talk about that a little bit?
That's what I do these days. It would change probably. But in 2017, we had a big show at Carnegie Hall, and I wanted to open the show. It was my concert, and I had like tons of great guests, like Aldi Meola, Stockel Rosenberg, so it was like a great concert, and in the big hall at Carnegie Hall, like the most beautiful hall. So I wanted to start the show with Improvisation 1 by Django Reinhardt, which is a very beautiful piece, also extremely challenging, very difficult to play, very difficult. And so I transcribed it, I learned it, I prepared it for the concert, and I started the show with that, and it was such a wonderful feeling. And then I was always obsessed with like classical, but I didn't have like classical technique. I didn't really have time at that moment to like develop the minimum required for classical, But I always had a classical mind as well as a jazz mind, you know what I mean? And improvisation and rock mind and all that, I love to improvise, but I always had the desire to play like that, like a classical recital,
Right.
of that pre-prepared piece, solo. And then I was like, I want to learn another one. So I learned improvisation number 2. And then I was like, I really love that repertoire. Maybe this is my repertoire. Maybe this is where I'm going to find something, like in classical. And then I listened to all the entire Frémaux, the historical recordings of Frémaux. And I found 17 preludes that Django wrote like that. Like I call them preludes. They are like solo guitar pieces,
Mm-hmm.
I found 17 of them. And I transcribed them. I recorded them on a vinyl and a CD. I prepared the whole recital. So I played the recital about 20 times, I think. We opened at the Lyon's Opera. It was sold out. It was beautiful. And I played it many times since then. It's a regular like recital, an hour 10, of music. Regular classical recital, regular lengths and stuff. Beautiful. And then I also wrote the book of transcription. So now they are all in one book. So it exists now as a recital. It exists on CD or vinyl. You can like listen to it. You can have the book and learn it. So now there is a precedent, and anyone who wants to learn them can. I'm still the only one in the world that I know right now to play all 17 and to play the recital and to have done that,
Mm-hmm.
But I hope that other people are gonna pick up and do the same work, So we can be like. You have the Stephane Wrembel version of the preludes, and you're going to have like someone else's version of the prelude. Like you have, I don't know, Samson François playing Chopin, and then you have Vlado Perlmutter playing Chopin, and you can listen to the different version of the same piece, you know what I mean? So I can't wait for someone else to do that, and I hope like other people are going to take interest in that repertoire, So, but now there is a precedent. Now we know what it is. So I love to celebrate the beginning of the show with like a couple of these solo pieces, also to show people the magnificent mind of Django, his pure impressionist mind. And Django was a classical musician. He possessed the jazz, but he's also a classical musician. And when I say classical, I don't mean a genre. I don't believe in genre. Mm-hmm. Classical means the laws of nature. You follow the laws of nature. So Django follows the laws of harmony, follows the laws of rhythm. It's just following these things, as they are. He's not fighting the nature of the guitar. He's completely riding on all that, So that makes him like a real, true classical musician. And classical musician doesn't mean you can only read like a prelude of Chopin on paper and impossible to improvise. That doesn't mean that. In reality, it's like knowing the laws of nature. So, and that brings us to the labels and stuff, like always. See, like, there's no genre in music. I oppose that. I think it's just like they had to classify some things by type of sounds and type of period or something to like make sales easier. But in reality, music is music. To me, there is no difference between, I don't know, like Palestrina, Bach, Chopin, and Pink Floyd. To me, it's all the same zone, especially Chopin and Pink Floyd. I see totally how it's, and Django, I see how it's the same thing. It's the same beautiful melodic power. I don't see any difference in that,
No, I'm taking in what you're saying and trying to, I I've had a lot of these same thoughts, not probably is in the same depth, but you know, music is music. It's what moves, you know, what moves people, and then you see all of these influences, you know, with the interplay of the influences and all of that. And I love this idea of not being genre specific, you know. That's that's really really good. I mean, I'm glad to hear this. You're a deep thinker. You're as much a philosopher as you are a musician. Where does that come from? Was that from your parents, or have you always been curious in that regard? And you know, how did you choose music and to express your intellect?
You know, I am who I am. I am what I am,
Yeah.
and I embrace my nature. And since I'm a kid, I've been like having philosophical thoughts like that. When
Hmm.
I was like 3, 4 years old, I remember walking in the preschool in recess, and there was that little path, and I would walk in that path thinking I was like dressed like a Greek philosopher or something, you know, and walking and having conversations with like Greek philosophers. Except I never knew what a Greek philosopher was. I never heard of a Greek philosopher. I never had these images. I don't know where they came from. But I had these images very strong, you know, and
Right.
things of the nature of the universe. For example, looking at the building and be like, what is it really solid, or is it in my mind that it's solid? And looking at the sky and being like, what is it made of? It's just like what is that space made of? You know, like
Right.
things kind of weird. And also like about the universe having always existed and will always exist, and the fact that the universe is eternal is eternal, but is infinite. I was like, if the universe is infinite, everything that we imagine must exist somewhere. Everything exists. Then there is no place for something not to exist. What we imagine is we're connected to something somewhere else in the universe that exists. It's for sure, because if it's infinite, there is an infinity of possibilities, and we are part of that infinity, even with our imagination. So already I was like 3, 4 years old thinking things like that. I also had like psychedelic moments, watching the fire and stuff like that. I had like pure psychedelic experience, not doing anything, like being in trance and stuff like that. And I remember forever wanting to be an artist. I loved music, I loved painting, and I knew I was going to be an artist. It never came to my mind that I would have a job one day. I never even thought about it. Never had a job. I don't know what that is, and I never, like all my friends at school, like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and me, I was like, I'm just gonna play music or paint or something. I'm not gonna do anything else.
Well, do you paint?
I'm restarting because the thing is, I wanted to be a painter when I was young.
Yeah.
That was my calling, you know. And I got discouraged when I was like a teenager. I kind of discouraged myself also, but I didn't know really how to express it, you know. Um, but basically, I did twice my first year of high school because I had poor grades. And halfway through the second year, it was terrible again. So my dad took me to the special school that had fine arts, which I really wanted to do that from the get-go. You know, I wanted to go
Sure.
like to do like my high school diploma with a major in fine arts. And my parents, you know, they were a bit old school and stuff. God bless their heart. I'm not blaming them for anything. They did what they thought was best, you know what I mean, and
Sure,
stuff.
of
I'm not
course.
blaming them at all. And they were probably right, because the path is the path. And I went there, and they show my paintings and stuff. They say, yeah, for sure, we could totally have you. You have your place here. And what's your situation at school? I say, I'm doubling my first year. They say, you cannot triple, so you can't come here. This is over for you. And that kind of broke my heart. It's so
Yeah.
intensely that I never painted again.
What do you have artists that you particularly like? Is there or a period that you like? I mean, I'm not trying to nail you down to genre because I know we don't want to do that, but
Why in painting?
yeah.
My very favorite of all is Möbius, Jean Giraud. Möbius is he was more into cartoons, like comics. And Jodorowsky, it's called the Incal. The Incal is the greatest comic book ever written.
I'm
There's everything in it. But yeah, like right now we're putting like it's a giant conversation. But Mobius is my favorite artist of all time. But I must say, I love Paul Klee. Not everything, not when it's too colorful and too big, but some of the things he did are some of the most exquisite paintings I've ever seen. His sense of form is incredible. I love Picasso, of course. I love Picasso. Picasso was always one of my favorite. Cézanne always touched me. Manet, I love, yeah. Pissarro. I love. It's very classic.
Impressionism and post-impressionism primarily, is that?
No, everything. I love Vermeer. I love like all these Dutch painters.
Oh yeah.
I love everything. I love all paintings. I think they're all beautiful.
And does that inform? How does that inform your music? How does that?
The way I compose, I follow now. Now I embrace the process. I'm not trying to compose based on something. I compose based on a feeling. I feel a melody or a groove or something wants to come, so I put it on. Then we record it with the band. We mix and we master. Once it's ready, then I re-listen to it. And with the help of it, I plunge within myself. And in my depth, somewhere, I know that song comes from somewhere because I felt it. I gave birth to it. And now I go back and I find the one thing that it was born from. This is where I give the title. Because I know now what the song is tied to.
I'm spellbound by talking with you. I'm getting much more than what I bargained for, and I really appreciate that. I'm very rarely do people hit me quite this way. I'm getting a lot out of listening to you talk, and I love the way you play. I love the way you can feel the emotion through your music, which is what we've been talking about. Let me ask you a question about something that I noticed, and I don't know if this is deliberate or whatever, but I noticed when you were playing a Django piece, you were playing with two fingers in the way that he, the way that he was relegated to. Is that something that you're doing consciously? And how does that, I mean, I know you will play with all of your fingers when you're just playing, but when you specifically on a few Django pieces, and I saw you play, with just the two fingers. Is that an homage to Django? What's that all about?
So on the hand, the first two fingers are the strengths. Mm-hmm. This one, like when you do like palm reading, this one is Zeus, and this one is Saturn. So it's like really Saturn is the pillar. It's like a lead in alchemy. So that's like the strengths here, and this one is like from the Sagittarius and all that. It's like the finger that travel, and it's the positional finger. But these two are strengths. This one is Venus. This is Aphrodite. This one is the sensitive finger. This one doesn't have his own, also doesn't have his own tendon, so it's like the weakest finger of the hand. But it's also Venus is the most beautiful. This is where you have sensitivity. You notice you're a guitar player. When you bend, it's always with that finger. When you do tremolos and stuff, it's always with that finger. And the last one is really an extension, It's made to like finish the job, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you see, so the fingers have a function, And Django's hand got burned here, the tendon, so these two fingers could not unfold properly, so he could play the chords, but he could not use them really for soloing. So he was stuck with Jupiter and Saturn, like with the two, with the strengths.
Yeah.
So my great question always was, okay, Django played this solo with two fingers. Is there any interest in doing it with two fingers? Am I going to learn something? That's always the question. Is there something for me in it? And the only way you can know is by doing it, is to be empirical. You cannot put thoughts before doing, before action. Action first. It has to be empirical. If you look at the 12th scene, the astrology, the signs, there is an order in those signs. It starts with Aries, which is fire, the energy of the beginning. And then you have Taurus, which is the earth. So you start with the body. You start by putting that energy in the body, meaning you start by putting some like things that you can play in yourself, chords, melodies, whatever. Then Gemini is the air. Then you analyze what you can play. You don't put like analyze before the playing. You put it after.
Mm-hmm.
First, you need to be able to do something. Then you analyze it. And the fourth one is Cancer, the water sign. This is the integration of all that in the psyche. And then there is another cycle, exactly the same, but with Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio in that same order, which is the next level. It goes a bit deeper. And then there is the last level, we call them the great archetypes, with Sagittarius, Capricorn, Verso, the Verso in English, in French is the one before Pisces. I forgot the name now. It's just like how is it in French?
I don't know. I don't know. You got me on that.
Anyway, so it
go
goes in the same order. So it tells you it's an initiatic path. It tells you how to learn. So if you start learning a bunch of like theory crap, that's gonna go in the way of your playing. Then your playing is gonna be confused. It's better to play first, then analyze what you play, and let it become part of your muscle memory.
Oh boy.
It's harder for it to be proper.
I totally agree with you. Learn to play.
And then, so when you do something like that with Django Reinhardt, you learn the solo with 2 fingers, and from that you analyze what you see, integrate it, and see what it does to you. You cannot pre-think what's going to happen. If someone tells me, oh no, but I have 4 fingers, I don't need to transcribe with 2, it's like, okay, but you don't know what you're missing because you're not learning from it. Whatever you learn from it, if you don't do it, you will not learn from it. So you're missing that part.
There are people that can play the notes and play a lot of notes, and they can read the music and all that, but there's no feeling in it at all. There's no depth of emotion in their playing. So
is that what we perceive? Because the same person you feel is like that, someone else will completely love.
Yeah, I know, that's the hell of it.
So maybe it's not in the person's, maybe it's not we don't share the same vibration, you know what I mean? The same vibrating field. But you see, so I learned the solos with 2 fingers, and by learning them with 2 fingers, I learned the science of fingering because Django was the greatest at fingering and positioning and stuff. So I learned so much by doing that. Then after I relearned the solos with 4 fingers as well. But the fact that I also have 2 fingers, sometimes it's better with 2 fingers. Some things are better played with 2 fingers. Some things are better played with 3, some things with 4 fingers. So that gives you a whole, in your muscle memory, a whole bunch of various techniques that you can use like all the time. And it's natural, it's in your muscle memory, you don't have to think about it. But now you have so many varieties of fingerings and stuff that you can express like way more than if you just learn one way. And there is definitely much to learn from Django Reinhardt, who is, to me, I always say that, Django is to the guitar what Bach is to the keyboard. So you study Django, you're just going to be a better guitar player. That's it, because he's an archetypal player. Django is an archetype. He's the archetype of the guitar. So you learn directly from the archetype and you're going to make great progress.
Are there any, what other musicians and instruments do you listen to, if any? I mean, who are some of your favorite musicians alive and past?
I absolutely love Ravel. I had an obsession for many years on Ravel, you know. I listen to a lot of classical piano and a lot of Ravel. Satie, Debussy, Chopin, I love. And things that are more contemporary, I love Pink Floyd, it's my favorite band. And the Police, and sometimes the Beatles, a little bit, the Rolling Stones. I listen to a lot of 80s music too, like the hits from the 80s. I drink some wine.
Yeah.
And I get a bit tipsy and I put some 80s music and I remember when I was a kid and then I sing the songs and stuff. It's very pleasant. It's great. I'm having a great time.
Do you sing?
Oh, I'm a terrible singer. I don't have a good voice. So I sing for myself. I don't care. I'm in my kitchen. I sit down. But you know, it's old school. I just play the songs and I listen to the songs and I listen to them.
Yeah.
Not doing anything else. You know what I mean?
You're a fan.
Really. So I'm doing that and I'm doing all kinds of things. I love Ralph Towner a lot. Gary Burton, Ralph Towner. I love the ECM stuff. I love Dire Straits. Mark Knopfler is in my top 5.
Yeah.
I think like when I think guitar, I think of Django Reinhardt, Ralph Towner, Frank Zappa, David Gilmour, and did I say Mark Knopfler already?
I think you did. No,
Yeah, and I think also of Jimi Hendrix,
I love Jimmy.
perhaps Jimmy Page, you know, like these are the names that come, and perhaps Steve Vai and Satriani also. But really, like my guys are like Django, Mark Knopfler, Zappa, David Gilmour,
Ralph Towner.
and Ralph Towner. These are my guys.
Yeah, I interviewed Ralph a while back. He's a really, really interesting guy. Very, very.
What a musician, man! Oh,
Yeah.
what a musician!
Yeah. He's an interesting guy for sure. Very, very cool. Well, listen.
This is my triptych. That's why I went to pick it up. 3 albums were releasing this weekend at Joe's Pub.
That's well, you know, I saw that, and that's why I called you. I said, hey, let's talk about those records for just a minute. What's on those records? We're looking at 3 CDs for people that are catching this on the podcast, but obviously some people watching the video. Tell us about the new project.
Well, it's a triptych with Jean-Michel Pilk on the piano. It's my band, the quartet.
Right.
2 guitars, bass, drums. But we have Nick Driscoll on saxophone and Jean-Michel Pilk on piano. Jean-Michel Pilk is one of the greatest piano player on earth. He's like unbelievable. And this band is unbelievable too. So, and this weekend we are releasing so it's a triptych. It's a representation of human life, the 3 stages of life. From 0 to 20, you're a child. You cannot build a personality, a persona, a character. You build yourself, you know, an image. From 20, 25 up to like 50, you received an initiation, and now you're participating in building the world. You know, you work very hard. You get an initiation and you work hard. And then the third part, when for me it's like entering the 50s. For a lot of people, it's like that too. It's the entrance in old age, the last stage. You know what I mean? It's the third phase. And this is, especially if you're well equipped with philosophy and all kinds of beautiful things, it's a very beautiful, it seems to be a very beautiful period that I cannot wait to really like be in like fully, because I think there is like, for an artist, there is, you get better and better. The more you work, the better you get. Right. So you cannot buy years, you cannot buy time, you cannot build a tree. So that last stage is the stage where your technical level is at the top, your ears are at the top, and you have like very high levels of consciousness and wisdom and grace, and all that can be transcendent in the music, you know. So this triptych ended up being about that. I didn't know when we did it that it was about that, but it is about that, you know. It's about the 3 stages of life. So it's incredible to play with these guys. They are like my guys. My band is probably one of the greatest rhythm section in the world. There are 3 of the best players in the world. Nick Driscoll Nick Anderson on drums, Harry Foreman Cohen on bass, and Josh Kay on guitar. These guys are like the best. Nick Driscoll on saxophone, same thing. He's a UFO. He lives like alone in Pennsylvania. You know, he like plays his instrument all day long. He's an amazing musician. He's like a super wise and brilliant person. And Jean-Michel Pilk is really definitely one of the greatest piano players who ever lived. He's like unbelievable. And the chemistry is the right one. So it all works perfectly, you know. We're on the same page with the classical, with this, we're exactly on the same page. And we played a series of concerts with Jean-Michel in 2019 that were incredible. We didn't know each other. We were like, okay, let's play. And it was so great. I said, let's go in the studio. So we started recording in February 2020. Then we had to wait until this September 23 because of all the events. And I said, Jean-Michel, let's record a triptych, 3 albums. I have a vision. That's what we must do. And I didn't know why. And we did. And the composition, I didn't know what they were. They felt like very human or something. There was something so human about them. So I was like, okay, I'm going to compose like that and find out. And then I put them together and all. And suddenly the titles started to come. And once I looked at it, I was like, oh, these are the three stages of life, and this is exactly, I'm on number 3 right now, and it's exactly that, you know. It's a reflection, and this is the most me that I've ever done. This is really, at this point, this is my masterpiece. This is like what I was aiming for all these years is like contained within this.
Oh man, I love that. I absolutely love that. Well, listen, you're going to be, just so people know, you're going to be freaking everywhere. You're going to be in Santa Cruz, California. You're going to be at the Blue Note in Napa. Well, that was in
I
January.
was.
The 26th is coming up. Wherever you were. Wait, what's the day? 29th. You were just there. I'm sorry. I don't even know what day it is. So you're going to be at Joe's Pub in New York.
Yeah.
You got 3 nights there. Then you're going down to Savannah for the music festival. You go Sarasota, Florida, and Fogartsville, Judson's in Orlando, Tin Pan in Richmond, Virginia, Blues Alley in DC, Regatta Bar, Boston, Jimmy's Jazz and Blues in New Hampshire, NPR Soundstage. That's pretty cool. Pittsburgh Winery in Pittsburgh, PA, Ginger Rabbit, the Bob's. I mean, you are freaking everywhere. Django A Go-Go on the road. That's going to be at in Santa Cruz. Well, that was, excuse me.
No, Django Agogo is my festival in New York.
Oh, okay.
It's a weekend festival. I have Angelo Debar, Serge Camps, Frank Anastasio, the original gypsy guitar trio from 1989, the legendary trio that recorded the legendary album. Angelo Debar is like a legend. And the 3 of them have never played in America. So they're coming. They haven't played together in 35 years. So they are reforming the trio and coming to play for my festival for the very first time.
April 30th through May the 5th.
Yeah.
Town
and
Hall,
also Simba Baumgartner, who's Django's grandson. We have Hugo Gesbard, the rising star of gypsy jazz in France. He's 22 years old, great master. We have Hugo Gesbard. We have Adrien Marco, also one of the great band leader, and Aurore Welke on violin. Jean-Michel Pilk is going to be there. And for the whole week, so we have a concert series in Maplewood, 3 nights. And the final show is at the legendary Town Hall in New York City, one of the most beautiful concert hall in New York. And also during the week, we have a guitar camp for 40 students. And we do like little groups, and everyone learns with everyone. We have breakfast together, lunch together, we jam together. There is a bunch of classes, guided jam session, workshops, concerts. Then we go to the pub and we play. It's a whole week dedicated to the music of Django with some of the greatest players on earth.
And infectious energy abounds. That'll be the biggest part of it. Your infectious energy is just incredible. I love it.
Thank you.
Oh man, that's great. Well, listen, you're blowing me away. This interview just absolutely, I'm going to use the word stunned. It stunned me. The depth of your intellect and bringing it to your art is second to none. Man, I love it. I absolutely love it. And when I listen to you play, I'm moved by your playing, and I can see what it's informed by, and I'm totally blown away. I really am. This is great. So I'm going to let you run for now. We're going to hopefully we'll do this some more in the future. You know, when you got stuff you want to talk about and all that. Anytime you ever want, to address our audience, please just give me you got my phone number.
Sure.
This is a community we're building here. This Jazz Guitar Today, it's a community we're building, and so we invite you in anytime. Just come on over, get that virtual cup of coffee with us. Anytime you want. So Bob Bakert for Jazz Guitar with Stephane Wrembel, and man, we appreciate your generosity today, and we appreciate you opening up your mind to us and giving us all this insight into what's going on with you and with your music and how it's informed. It's stunning. That's it.
Thank you.
Just stunning.
I was happy to talk to you, Bob. It was great.
It's great stuff. So take care. Thank you so much, Stephane. Appreciate it now.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Goodbye. Have fun. Say good night to your daughter. Goodbye to your daughter. She's a beautiful little girl. Take care now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.